Everyone else going, welcome back. So let's talk about the opening minutes for Here's Negan. This is probably the most revealing of all the new footage that we have, because we learned some new details on the Negan situation, what exactly is going down with him and Alexandria. We see some interaction between him and Maggie, and there's some stuff that's been left out, and so I'm wondering if they are going to be touching on that again near the end of the episode. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see. So before we go any further, obviously if you are new here, make sure to be a subscriber if you do want more Walking Dead content like this. To start this video off, I guess let's focus on the very beginning, which is we see Maggie and Hershel talking about Glenn. And yeah, I mean, they of course have to give us this just because they have to remind us that what Negan did was very tragic. And I will say, the more that time goes on this show, I'm just that much more accepting of Negan. Like, I've always been way more accepting than not accepting, but I used to be more in the belief of, yeah, but it makes sense why he couldn't be in Alexandria, obviously. Like, he's done some horrible things. I like the character, but it makes sense that he couldn't be there. But as time goes on, especially with the way he's been in the last few episodes, how much he has helped out, I think it is time to just let it go with him. I know he killed people who are very, very close to them. He started that war. I get it, because he did kill Glenn and Abraham in very brutal ways. But it just seems like it's more of Maggie making the decision on that than everyone else. Even Daryl doesn't really like Negan, but he can see that he's starting to change a little bit, which he obviously doesn't care, because in the scene here, he does help Carol, or apparently anyways, he helped Carol set up that cabin for him. I don't think Daryl really cares about Negan at all. Like, I think if they decided to banish him, I don't think he would really care. I think he'd be like, okay, cool. But the key point in that is, I don't think Daryl's the one deciding to do it, right? Whereas in season 9, he wanted to kill him, right? Like, he disagreed so heavily with what Rick was doing. And so I think it's time to just accept Negan into Alexandria, and I think Here's Negan is going to make that argument very clear. Maggie is the only one that's holding that back, and it's hard because I like Maggie. I really do like Maggie, and I think a lot of people are starting to take their hate out on her because it is understandable why she feels the way she feels, obviously. It's just a lot of people, I think at this point, because we've seen so much more good coming from Negan, that the fact that she just came into the picture and because she's back now he has to leave sort of thing, I think that kind of pisses some people off, and so some people just don't like Maggie. And I can say that for me personally, I kind of am starting to feel that way. And again, I like Maggie. I really do like Maggie. It's just, it is a little annoying that as soon as she came back, all of a sudden Negan has to leave, and it's this whole situation. I do understand it. I get it from Maggie's point of view. He killed her husband. Her son doesn't have a father because of him, and she has to live with that pain every day. Imagine if that was in real life. Like, man, that's hard. I can't even imagine it. That's tragic. But because this is a television show, it's not exactly real life, and because we've seen so much more from Negan, I'm just like, you know what? I want to wrap this up, and I think we are definitely going to in the final season, and I can't wait to see what's going to happen here. And Negan knows. That's the thing. Negan sees Maggie, and he feels like, he feels all this pressure because he's helping out, he's helping rebuild, but because she's back, he just feels like there's all of this pressure on him. And it's really interesting because in a conversation later on that Negan has with Carol, you can really see who he is now. He's really trying to help out Alexandria. Like, he is really trying to help out. He wants to stay there. I think after season 9's Sanctuary revisit, he realized there's no life out here for me. He wants to stay in Alexandria. He wants to make a name for himself. He wants to be able to help people and change, I guess, the way people view him, because he was never that person before. And I think that's what Here's Negan is going to prove with the backstory with his wife and how tragic it was and just how he became who he became. Because the way you got to think of Negan is, when we were first introduced to him, he was at his lowest moment in his life. And imagine if we first saw Rick, like for the first time we saw Rick, and it was like season 5 or 6 around there, when he was at his worst, when he would just kill anyone, he did not care. It was Ricktatorship, right? I think that's exactly what it was. If we saw him for the first time and we were with the Saviors or whatever, and we were there the entire time with Negan, we saw how he lost his wife, how he turned dark because of it, and he made really bad decisions, this would be so flipped. Like, we would hate Rick so much. Slowly start to accept him because you would see that he is a good person. He just went through some dark moments. Well, that's what Negan's in, right? Negan's exactly in the same position. So Carol kind of sees this interaction here. It's not really an interaction, but Carol sees that they're both looking at each other. She sees that, yeah, there's something going on here. It's going to get bad, and I don't know if we can really allow him here. So Carol decides to take Negan back to, I think this could be Leah's cabin. I might be wrong about that, though. Unless it's just some old cabin. I don't really remember what Leah's cabin looked like, but it could potentially be Leah's cabin, which would make sense if you want to kind of connect everything together. Why bring him to another cabin? If you know that there's a cabin there, just bring him there. So I think it's possible. But Carol tells Negan that the council decided to banish him. And I find that really interesting because I think she's lying. I think she's lying because obviously she would be lying. Like, we saw that scene of her looking out the window. She knew that something bad was going to happen. She knew that something bad could happen between Maggie and Negan. And so she decided to take him away, lie to him, and keep him over here for however long that, I guess for the remainder of the episode. Because I do think he's coming back to Alexandria, and I'll talk about that in a second. But it's totally a lie. It's so obvious. And you know, because first of all, this is the opening minutes, we would see a decision like that play out. You know, like, we would see something like that play out. So that's how you know it's a lie. Carol does this type of thing. Rick kind of did this thing to Carol a long time ago. Like, I know that's exactly what she's doing here. And it's kind of interesting if you think of the parallels of that. Like, Carol, in her killing Karen and David, that was pretty messed up. She just killed two people that were sick because she wanted to keep them safe. And it's weird how people love Carol so much right now. Because, yeah, she is a good person. I'm not saying that you shouldn't. But Negan, he also killed two people. You could argue which one was more brutal, if the Lucille or, like, lighting them on fire. But wait, were they lit on fire? I can't remember now. Anyways, you do kind of have to take that into consideration. I do think the parallel there is that, or the lesson, I guess, that Carol's going to learn in this episode is that, you know what? I think he should be allowed in Alexandria. I think she's kind of testing him. I think she wants to know more about him. I think that's where Here's Negan could come into play. I think, like, he potentially could be explaining it all to her. Or maybe he's just remembering some parts to himself. But I do think Carol is going to let him come back to Alexandria in the end. And the reason why is because we never got this shot of the two. Maggie is looking at both of them. I think Maggie is in Alexandria, obviously. And I think she's seeing Negan and Carol come back. The voiceover here is like, if you stay here, she will kill you. So it looks like Negan is going to leave. It looks like Carol is telling him that, and so they both leave. But I think they're just returning because in the opening minutes here, they already left. We didn't get this scene at all. So I think this backstory here is going to play out throughout the episode, and Carol's going to stick around because she's going to decide to bring him back. And I think when she returns with him, I think that's when Maggie looks at Negan and she has this look because she's shocked. She thought that maybe he was gone. And now she's just like, what? Carol decided to bring him back? So she's more pissed at Carol now, too. And I think that's going to be the cliffhanger because, again, I think these final episodes, it's not taking anything, or I'm not taking anything away from Here's Negan, the final episode. It's just, they're all kind of pointless in the sense that I think certain story beats are already planned for the final season. I think some of the Maggie and Negan drama, that was already set up for the final season. So they do an interesting thing here in bringing Negan away, but I think they're going to bring him back in the end. And Maggie is all of a sudden mad at Carol and also mad at Negan, which is most likely where we would have been if these 6 episodes never existed, because Carol was the one that let Negan out. She's a little more sympathetic towards him, so I think it makes sense. Like, I'm sure this episode's going to be one of the greatest of all time. It's going to be, I'm hoping it's going to be in my top 10 or top 20 episodes of all time. Like, I have some expectations for it, for sure. They're not too high, like I'm not keeping it in my top 5, but top 10 to top 20, I can see that more realistically. So yeah, but that doesn't really take away from the fact that these episodes, they're trying to introduce some new things here with the characters without changing the story too much, because they already wrote the final season. There's stuff that happens in episode 1 and 2. I think it makes sense that Negan's going to return at the end of the episode because Jeffrey Dean Morgan said that in the final season there's a lot of action, a lot of things happen. So I think that's why. I think it makes a lot of sense, because if he's around a lot, it's probably because he's in Alexandria, and all the action that's going on is most likely with him and Maggie, not in that way, but there could potentially be some Commonwealth stuff there and Reaper stuff, because we know we're supposed to see them, right? They're supposed to be this small group. It's possible that the Reapers were already originally planned to be introduced in the first few episodes of the final season. And so that's why we got that Lone Reaper out there, because again, you're not touching on them too much, but you just have one guy out there. It doesn't affect the story so much. That's kind of what these 6 episodes have been. They don't really change the overall story of anything. If you think of every single one, like in 17, Maggie arrived to Alexandria. Again, that's how I imagine the first episode of the final season starting, was with Maggie arriving to Alexandria. I know a lot of stuff happened in 17, but nothing too significant, nothing that changed the story dramatically. It was just some extra backstory, just some stuff that they did while traveling back to Alexandria. In 18, it was just some Leah stuff. 19, that was just a random episode and it didn't really affect anything. In 20, again, it started off with them getting captured by the Commonwealth, ends with them captured by the Commonwealth. So 21 was really pointless because Daryl and Carol never resolved anything. They were just tired in the end and just kind of went to sleep, but they're kind of friends still, so they're still in the same place they were in episode 16. And here's Negan. He is most likely going to leave here because we see it in the opening minutes, and in the end, he's going to return where all the drama could start, because that was most likely the original plan for the final season. So yeah, it's interesting. I definitely can't wait for the final season. Like, it is going to be a lot of fun. I want to get to I want to see the trailer and all the scenes where you actually see new footage with Maggie and Negan fighting, and all the scenes are going to matter. Like, these 6 episodes, they definitely are bonus episodes because it hasn't affected the story at all. The final season is going to be where it's at. That's where the excitement is going to be. So anyways, I'll leave it here. Post all your thoughts down below. Hope you guys all enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching.